97, 98, 99, 100. Oh, hey, I didn't realize you guys were here already. I was just flexing with my secret rare Goku, and it really made me kind of think about what makes a card good, right? And effects that go off are probably like the easiest way to say it. Like Victory Strike, for sure. If it goes off, you win the game. Right now, it's the only effect that definitively says that, and I think most people will say this is the best effect in the game just simply because it can win it. But it also got me thinking, hey, are there also cards that are good even though they don't resolve? For example, we've got Unexpected Turn from the new set. This card is pretty hard to resolve, but the fact that it can resolve and your opponent has to play in a certain way to get it to resolve means that a smart opponent would play differently. And just, an opponent playing differently and not resolving the card you want to play can be a good effect. So I'm going to finish up 100 reps on this arm, and then we're going to get started. So 1, 2, 3. Oh, yeah! All right, all jokes aside, I really do mean what I was saying. There are some effects that are in this game that really disrupt your opponent and almost have an effects that say, can be equivalent a lot of the times that say your opponent can't do this thing because the aftermath of it is so horrendous because of it. So, for example, let's look at one of the best leaders that has this kind of effect. I really don't have a catchy name for it, so sorry for it being so abstract, but we've got this Kaba and Vegeta leader from the new expert deck. One of its autos, it's got 3 autos and a permanent. That's a lot of text. It says, when your opponent's leader attacks, if all of your opponent's energy is in rest mode, choose up to 2 of your opponent's energy. The cards chosen with this card's skill can't be switched to active mode during your opponent's next charge phase, right? So if you really think about this effect, what it's saying is that you can't, your opponent should not attack with all their energy tapped, right? Which, is a really easy thing to do. It's most of these effects that I'm on the left side here in the main deck of this are all effects that your opponent triggers just by doing something, right? It's something that your opponent can play around by not doing it, but I really feel like the fact that they can't do that thing makes the card really powerful, right? You don't have to resolve an effect. You just have to say, oh, you can't do this because the effect, the auto triggering just does so much to put me in the lead that it's just as much as saying that I win the game, right? Which is really abstract, I know. And let's kind of do like an easier, kind of slower start. So let's start with Burnished Bonds Borgos. So obviously, and this is with Whis and some new cards like the Kami, and I think it's a Raditz from the new set. All of them are these autos. When you play this card, draw 1, and during your opponent's turn, if your opponent switches their energy to active mode using a non-awakened skill, choose up to 1 of your opponent's energy and place it in their owner's drop area. So really, this is saying, hey, your opponent can't untap energy with a non-awakened skill because in most cases, if they do, they lose the energy they untap. Unless they untap 2 at the same time, which can happen, right? They just pretty much are better off not doing that thing they just did because this auto procking puts them behind enough and they lose that energy forever, right? I don't have to explain to people why Borgos is a good card because people know it, but I really do think it's good because not because the auto actually goes off. This rarely ever goes off, right? Think of how many times that Borgos goes off. It goes off so little that there are times I play these cards and my opponent untaps an energy. I just completely miss it because to me a lot of the time this says, oh, don't untap an energy or you lose an energy, and so that's it, right? That's why I think some of these cards can be so powerful. This is a really obvious example. Going to some like more kind of less obvious, there's like Mercenary Tau, right? Ruthless Trainer. This is a fantastic card from last set. It's Barrier. If your opponent's leader card is green or yellow, reduce the energy cost of this card in your hand by 1. Auto once per turn. When a card is in your hand is placed in drop area by an opponent's skill, your opponent chooses 3 cards from their hand and sends them to their warp, right? So once again, this is not saying, quote, your opponent can't activate effects that make you discard cards, right? That's not what this is saying. But the idea of saying, oh, for 1 energy, I can make my opponent not, be really inclined to not discard my hand at all, right? Or they, get a 3 times worse kind of thing. If they play just like real example, like the one drop World Martial Arts Goku, right? That says pitch a card. You are going -2 if you're that opponent for doing just a -1, right? You have to really commit, and that's just obviously the really good, right? And because of that, people aren't going to be playing into this auto because they don't want to go -1 or -2, sorry, and the auto doesn't resolve. I'm going to go probably quicker through these because you probably get the point by now. Champa and Vados, if this card is removed from a battle area by opponent's skill, you may choose one card from your hand, placing your drop area. Instead, if you do, this card remains in the battle area and switch to rest mode, then choose up to one of your opponent's energy and switch it to rest mode. So this is probably more conditional, but just the fact that says, if you try to blow this card up, which is probably like one of the most pivotal cards for this Universe 6 archetype, I'm going to punish you for doing so, and also... I'm just going to really punish you, right? It's going to, set you up for maybe being able to attack into it, but it's just a really powerful thing, right? There's Broly counter reversal, right? Quick and easy, auto once per turn. When your opponent activates a counter skill, deal 1 damage to them. I don't want, losing life is a big deal, so don't activate counter skills. Twice as much for this one. When you play this card, activate this skill for duration of the turn. When your opponent uses a skill to play a battle card, your opponent chooses 2 cards from their life and place them in the drop area, right? If they've got 2 life left, obviously they're not going to do it. But even if they've got like 4 or 5, like placing 2 cards, like critting 2 life, for quote unquote free outside of battle is a huge effect, which can only be kind of exemplified more with 8 drop Golden Frieza. If your leader card is a red Frieza's army card, you and your opponent can't play cards with 30k power or less unless they choose 4 cards from the life and place them in their battle and place them in their drop area as they play the battle card. Rereading this right live, right? You and your opponent, I guess you can't play stuff too unless you drop 4, but the wording almost makes it seem like if you play a card, your opponent has to drop 4, which would be hilarious. But going back to it, just the fact that, yes, you play this card, your opponent has 4 life, right? They probably won't resolve it, and because they don't want to die, right? And you still win the game because this card's out, and you just kind of swing slowly into cards and go from there, right? I kind of like the Universe 7 Frieza. I don't think I have them here. Yeah, but the Universe 7 Frieza, same kind of thing. But that probably resolves a little bit more. Maybe it's over here. Oh, there it is. Yeah. This is kind of like a bigger version of this guy, right? This card probably resolves more because it's only hitting 1 life every time they play a counter or non-keyword auto or activate skill. Just by placing 1 card to the life. Sure, it's not as drastic as 4, but they're probably going to try to proc this once or twice just to stay alive and try to win, but that's just a different scenario there. Kind of also fuses Zamasu auto. When you play this card with Union, your opponent reveals their hand and you choose up to 2 cards from it and add them to your energy in rest mode. With the new Zamasu leader at the same time, that means if they have 8 or more energy, your opponent just automatically takes 4 damage. So same kind of thing. It really makes your opponent say, I don't want to charge the 6 life, and honestly sometimes I don't get a chance to, but I don't want to be at 6 life, or sorry, not life, energy. I don't want to be at 6 energy, so I'm just going to not go to 6 energy. Or if they have a play that goes off on 6, they're going to have to really think like, okay, do I have to, am I going to win this turn? If I don't, I'm going to lose. So just some thoughts there. Meteoric Energy Kefla. So when this card activates Aegis, choose up to 3 of your opponent's energy and switch to rest mode. And this kind of goes with the combo leader. I probably should put these together, but so ideally what you'd want to do is that you'd want to, with this Kaba, you'd want to swing with your leader first when all your energy is open. But if you also have Meteoric Energy Kefla out, you kind of desensitize, or make it so they don't want to swing at all until they tap out. Because if they don't, then you can just tap 3 of their energy, right? So it makes like this kind of catch-22 of like, do I swing with my leader and then not have 2 energy next turn? When all my energy is tapped, or do I play Kefla? Play stuff after Kefla and just say, I have to play with 3 less energy this turn. It just makes a lot of kind of decisions that make it a really good control. And all these cards here, except for maybe the Fuse Zamasu, the key point is that your opponent has to consciously make these decisions, right? None of this is saying you can't do it, once again, but it's saying you have to, if this condition is met, you get kind of a bad thing happen to you that just almost makes it like is a really great thing to happen, and it makes it hard to recover from. And just cards like let's Super Saiyan 3 Scramble. So when your opponent combos with a battle card with an energy cost 2 or less, choose one card in your opponent's combo area and place it in their owner's drop. Similar thing to the Piercing Super Saiyan Gohan. And when you play this card and your opponent combos during the duration of the turn, choose all of your opponent's battle cards in the battle area and combo area with energy cost 3 or less and place them in the drop area. So these are almost the same thing in the sense like, sure, you can combo with 2 cost cards like super combos, but they will be immediately out of the combo area, and you just -1. Super combos, maybe I can see like, I need to get some card draw. I'm going to play it just for the draw, even though I know it's going to get swept away. But it just says, you just simply can't combo with these cards because they get put away. And then lastly, so we'll go back to unexpected turn for this now. So if your opponent has 3 or more battle cards in play with energy cost 2 or more, the battle card your opponent is playing is placed in the owner's drop area instead. Then choose all battle cards with an energy cost of 2 or less, ignoring barrier, and send them to their owner's orb. So that's a lot of stuff. There are 2 counter timing windows for this card. If you don't know, the first one is if your opponent has 3 cards that meet the condition and play a 4th one, you can play this. If the card they play is the 3rd one, you can play it on the 2nd timing, but they don't get automatically, they still get their auto, and if they are 3 cost or more, they don't get swept away by this card. But it's still a good opportunity window to activate this card. That aside, so if your opponent has 3 or more battle cards in energy with a cost of 2 or more, right? If your opponent has 3 cards that meet this condition, and they know Unexpected Turn is a card that exists, they're going to say, I should be very careful about playing that 4th card because I can wipe for 1 energy. I can lose my entire field, right? Similarly, if they have only 2 cards that meet the criteria and they're trying to play a 3rd, that can still happen, right? And just the fact that this card exists, people are going to change the way they play it. And we kind of see this with Kami, right? When Kami first came out and it was a good control strategy, people were not overextending to 4 cards. They would not use all their energy even though they could because they are afraid of Kami, right? You don't have to have the Kami in your hand. Your opponent will be too afraid. They will say, if I play into Kami, I probably lose right now. So I have to play to say, they have to make a decision of, if they have Kami, do I lose on the spot? Or if I play 4 battle cards, if I don't play 4 battle cards, can I still win, right? If I only play 3 battle cards, am I still in a good enough position to be winning? Or do I have to take the chance of playing a 4th one and something bad happening, right? So these are the decisions that your opponent makes. These have nothing to do with you. You have no control on it. And it's just really a point where your opponent can make mistakes. And I think that's a really valuable thing in this game. A lot of the times, people kind of judge their own situations and what they can do better, but just giving your opponent a really tough situation to analyze and give them the potential to make a mistake can go really far. So, which is why I think Unexpected Turn and all of these honestly are just fantastic cards, because it makes your opponent say, okay, do I win if this happens? Do I lose if this happens? And they don't know the answer, and they have to make their best judgment, right? Which gives them ambiguity and gives you a chance to win. So there's that. Real quick, I'm going to look at these sideboard cards. So these are kind of like the similar versions of the first ones, but a lot of them are cards that will resolve, and they're just more minor. And most of them just kind of are cards that deal with things that happen in the game no matter what, and your opponent just kind of has to live with it or kind of play around it. So, for example, we've got like Chile the Beautiful, probably the easiest one. So when one of your opponent's battle cards is KO'd, your opponent chooses 1 card in their hand and places it in their drop, right? It's really easy to KO battle cards, depending on the deck for sure. That can be very true or very false, but just KOing cards, right? This will happen, and it will make your opponent say, okay, this Chile's out. Do I have to, is this a priority target to get rid of now? And if they do spend the energy or resources to get rid of this Chile, you are probably still doing all right, because they had to waste effort and energy to get rid of this card because they knew how much you could, compile on them and that kind of stuff. So similar to like Dark Power Black Mass Saiyan, it's not saying you can't summon battle cards with 15k or less using a non-keyword skill. But if your opponent does, they have to drop 2 cards, and that can be very obnoxious, or that can put them back enough that they can't be winning, so they can't do it. We've got Isekai keeping watch, similar thing during your turn. When your opponent plays a battle card, your opponent chooses one card in their hand, places it in the bottom of the deck. And then we've got like cards like Dormant Legends. This one's like almost always gonna go off, right, in one way or the other. But when a card is added, a card in your life is added to your hand or placed in the drop area during your opponent's turn, place the top card of your deck under this card. If there are 3 or more cards under this card, place this card in your drop area. Then choose one red Broly with an energy cost of 4 from your deck and play it. Then shuffle your deck. So just the fact that you're able to get like not having to awaken your opponent is like a slim margin of decks. Like Victory Strike, ooh, man, I hope someone owns that card. But this is going to resolve pretty much every game, but it's kind of a situation where your opponent really doesn't want it to resolve, right? And just to finish it off, like Combo Killer and Eliza, good example. When your opponent combos, they choose one card in their hand, place it in the drop. So, pitching one card a turn isn't like a serious thing, like once again with Chile, but just that pressure and just saying, oh, making it harder to do things they really want to do or, have to do, can just really compound and be good. So this is more proactive than reactive cards like these ones, I'd say. And lastly, we've got like Veku, who is going to get KO'd eventually because of barrier blocker. So it's really hard to get rid of this unless you've got like Kind Wish or Zeno. Final Showdown, Sengoku, which is great with like this Persistent Assault Krillin because it's a deadly defender. So eventually, if they want to win, they're going to have to get rid of this card, which means we get Final Sengoku come down. And lastly, we've kind of got like these win condition cards. Like I already talked about Emperor of Universe 7 Frieza. But if your opponent is if your opponent's counter skills are non-keyword autos or activate skills activate, then they lose life, right? They're gonna have to activate skills eventually, right? It's unless you're like at 1 life and you're just going all in, you're definitely gonna just keep activating skills, and having this out will keep proccing and just make your opponent make some suboptimal plays, right? And lastly, Fu the Dark Banisher, which has been really popular lately as a kind of catch-all win condition because swinging 3 times, like once again, everyone's going to be activating skills, right? So making it harder and punishing your opponent for doing things they need to be doing can just be very good. So that's going to be it. Hopefully this video wasn't too rambly and you kind of got what I was saying. It really, all I'm trying to say, and I think I've said this several times already, but just because you can't activate a card's auto, or just because your opponent can play around a card, doesn't mean it's bad. And normally, the fact that your opponent has to play around a card is the reason that makes it good. So that's it for me. Let me know what you guys think about this video. A little bit more rambly than my recent ones, so there's that. Let me know what you guys think about it, and I'll catch you all next time.